A few years ago, I got an opportunity to actually be put through, it was really kind of forced into a workout with the two strongest men in the state of Texas. That's not an embellishment. I'm not exaggerating that as true. They are certifiably the number one and number two strongest men in the state of Texas. You see, their sport was a sport called strongman. I wasn't asked to participate because that's what I am. They were friends of mine. And so as I got to know them, I was like, you know what? Hey, I'll give you a Saturday. Let's hang out. And you can teach me a little bit about this world that you've invested so much time. And so I showed up on a Saturday to learn what it is to participate in the sport that is strongman. If you're not familiar with what that means, it's no different than any sport, right? The name of the sport implies what you'll actually be doing. So when you go running, you run. When you go swimming, you swim. When you go and do strongman, you do strongman things, right? And so I'm not sure who really had the right, who was in charge to decide what that actually all entailed. But this is what I learned after a day spent with these guys. That guy's crazy. Because the nature of the sport is this, that as you complete these events, these challenges, you're meant to shock and awe the world. That's the point, right? And so I show up. I love these two guys. We're hanging out. I show up on the scene, and what I find is there's a series of events, obstacles that they have set up for us to go through over the course of the day. The first of which was an event called the Atlas Stones. You don't need to know what that means, okay? It's awful. I won't belabor the point. But what you do need to know is it means this. So just imagine, right? Like this is a shelf, a platform. The goal of the Atlas Stone event is I am literally just picking up a rock and I'm just going to put it on this platform. You're not walking with it. You're not carrying it anywhere. You're not handing it off to anybody else. You are literally, it is sitting in front of this thing. You have to pick it up and put it on the table. That's as simple as it gets. And so I, in all of my unbridled arrogance, thought to myself, you know what? Hey, this seems simple enough. I'm a strapping young lad. I'm going to step up and I'm going to just lift this thing with my legs and I'll put it on this platform because I've made my way. I've lifted furniture. I've helped people move. This seems easy enough, right? It's simple. And yet, as I walked up, one of my friends came up to me and goes, hey, listen, like you need to understand. I know what you're thinking. You want to lift this thing with your legs. Right? Logic would say that's what you should do, but hear me out. You're not going to want to lift it with your legs. You're actually going to want to lift it with your back because the nature of the object is it's so awkward and big that you need to get all the way around. You kind of bear hug this thing and dig your forearms into it, and you're going to kind of lean back with leverage into your back, and you're going to set it in your lap and you're going to put it on the platform. And I heard him say this, and I was like, man, that just doesn't seem realistic. And so I listened to him. I was like, okay, yeah, man, thanks. I really appreciate that. And yet, so I stepped up to this stone and I did what I thought seemed sensible in the moment. I squatted down in front of it and I kind of scooped my arms underneath this thing and I went to hoist it. It didn't move at all. It didn't budge in the slightest. And so I'm trying to save face. Man, I don't want to be embarrassed in front of these guys. I need to prove myself right. And so, you know what? I'm going to give it the good college try. I didn't give it what I really have. I'm going to give it this second go around. And so I squat back down and I seek to pick this thing up. And as I lift it, I get it off the ground, but then it rolls in front of me and falls back to the earth. And so at this point, I'm frustrated. So I stand up. And he walks over, he's like, hey, and I'm like, no, like, just leave me for a moment. And I start to process, like, you know what, I'm a smart guy. And I think I'm physically capable, I can do this, and this seems simple enough, like this doesn't seem like it's that big of an obstacle. What is the issue? And then it just struck me. It was like, listen, I should probably heed the advice of the guy that's been moving these stones for a living. I should probably listen to the strongman on the strongman event. And so I did. And so I bear hugged this thing foolishly against my better judgment, and I kind of leaned back and I set it in my lap. How easy was that? And then I cleaned it up, put it on the platform, and we went on our way. It's that simple. The reason I tell you that story is because tonight we're going to look at a passage that seeks to give us some similar advice. Not advice on how to lift rocks, not advice on how to succeed in this particular event, but advice on how to succeed in the general sense of life as we all know it, that we would learn how to succeed at life. That's the principle that we're looking at tonight. And this feels timely, right? Like we're here at the end, we just finished 2020, thank God, and 2021 has at last begun. And as we look back, what we recognize is we really need some success. Like we really need to succeed. If we think back on the last year, we have gone through a global pandemic, the likes of which none of us expected. We have endured civil unrest, we have seen political division, and we have seen increasing unemployment rates. 2020 was far from being successful. If anything, it was a setback. And so what I want us to do tonight as we think about 2021 is how do we come back from the setback? Right? How do we actually succeed in the lives that God has given us? Now, normally, this is the point in the sermon where you would be like, okay, he's going to turn the corner and he's going to tell us, hey, just be content in your circumstances. Winning isn't everything. You don't have to succeed to be a success. That's not what I want to say at all, because I actually don't think that the desire to succeed is a bad one. In fact, I think it's biblical. That first I take inventory of all of the skills and the resources that God has given me. And then after I've taken that inventory, I deploy all of those things. I use all that God has given me, my resources, my skills, my talents, my time. I leverage all of it for maximum effectiveness, for the greatest output possible. That's what it means to succeed. And so the question tonight isn't, is it bad to succeed in life? That's not the question on the table. Instead, the question on the table tonight is how do we succeed in life? And to answer that, we're actually going to be in the book of Proverbs. So if you have your Bible, grab it, turn with me. We're going to be in Proverbs chapter 3. And as you're turning there, let me just give you really brief background on the book of Proverbs. So the book of Proverbs is written by a guy named Solomon. Solomon was king of Israel. He was arguably the wisest, wealthiest, and highest achieving individual in human history, right? If he wasn't he was one of the greatest. And so he is writing this book to his son. And the idea behind the book is that he is giving his son practical advice, wisdom for how to live his life. And in chapter 3, he is telling his son, hey, here is how you succeed in life, right? Here's how you find favor and good success in the eyes of God and man. That is quoted from the passage that we're going to be reading. And so what we're going to learn as we read through this passage is that Solomon is going to give us 3 keys to the comeback. 2021, baby. 3 keys to coming back from the setback we've endured. And then we're also going to find that as we read it, these keys will lead to our success. So the first one is this, that if we wish to succeed, we must commit to God our whole heart. If we want to succeed, we have to commit to God our whole heart. All right, Proverbs 3, verse 1. I'll show you where I found this. It says this, my son, do not forget my teaching, but let your heart keep my commandments. For length of days and years of life and peace they will add to you. Let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you. Bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart, so you will find favor and good success, there it is, in the sight of God and man. So right out of the gate, we see here in just a few verses that Solomon is instructing his son on how to live his life in the most successful way possible, right? It says that you might find favor and good success. That's what he's writing to his son for. And yet, at the very beginning of the passage, it says, do not forget my teaching. And so that begs the question for us. What has Solomon already taught his son? All right, we're in Proverbs 3. What did he teach in 1 and 2 that we need to know in order to really understand what he's trying to get across to us? And so I'll just give it to you. Proverbs 2 says this. It says, my son, if you receive my words and you treasure up my commandments with you, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. For the Lord gives wisdom. From his mouth come knowledge and understanding. He is telling his son, hey, don't forget that what you need in life is wisdom, right? Wisdom. The ability, the knowledge to know how to navigate all of the complexities and intricacies of life. That's what you need. If you want to succeed, you need wisdom. So how do we get wisdom? We get it from the Lord. That's how we find wisdom. Wisdom comes from a knowledge of the fear of the Lord. You see, God is the one who took wisdom, this thread of wisdom, and he wove it into the fabric of creation so that if we can find it, we can find the way to move through life and arrive at the best outcomes, right? That's what wisdom is. he says it like this. Actually, he continues and he says this. He says, so, hey, you need to remember what I've taught you. And then also, you need to let your heart keep my commandments, right? It says that, let his heart keep his commandments. Solomon is implying that, hey, you need to let your heart. You don't need to encourage your heart. You don't need to challenge your heart. You don't need to remind your heart. You just need to let it keep my commandments. What's the implication? Your heart, it just needs you to get out of the way. Like it says this in Ecclesiastes 3:11, that he, being God, has made everything beautiful in his time. And also, he has put eternity into man's heart. So I was reading recently a 3-year-long study out of Oxford, right? And this study concluded this idea that humanity, we as a race, we are predisposed to an inclination for God, to a belief in God, that a belief in a higher power, it ultimately accomplishes two things. It helps us, according to another scientist, Andrew Newberg, it helps us to accomplish two of our most basic needs, self-maintenance and self-transcendence. What's self-maintenance? It's I need to take care of myself. Self-transcendence, I need to be successful, and then also I want to move past where I am to where I want to be. Self-maintenance and self-transcendence. The only thing in life that accomplishes those two most basic needs, according to Oxford and Andrew Newberg, is the religious experience, a connection to God. It's not a romantic experience. I'm sorry, if you had that hope for your guy or your girl, it will not work. It's not a social experience. It's not going out Friday or Saturday night. It's not a professional experience, that promotion that you've been longing for. That is not going to satisfy your desire to be taken care of, safety, and to move past where you are to where you want to be. Success, the only thing that does that is God. And so Solomon is saying, hey, let your heart, it wants to follow God. Let your heart keep my commandments. I love the way St. Augustine says it. It says, thou has made us for thyself, O Lord, and our hearts, they're restless till they find their rest in thee. But he doesn't stop there. He keeps going in verse 3. So he just said, hey, let your heart, get out of the way. Let your heart keep my commandments. And then as he goes, he says, let not steadfast love and faithfulness forsake you, but bind them around your neck. Write them on the tablet of your heart. Now that seems contradictory if we think about it. Like, hey, your heart wants God. Now also, you need to make sure that your heart isn't gonna kind of punt on the idea of loving and being faithful to God. That seems completely contradictory, right? The reason he says this, the reason we have to bind, we have to fasten steadfast love and faithfulness to ourselves is because there are two instinctual motivations within us, right? One side of you wants to follow after God. And then the other side of you wants to follow after yourself. You have competing inclinations. And the reason that is because of sin. That's where we get this. And so Solomon's saying, hey man, listen, you are going to want to follow after the Lord. And at the same time, there is something dark and crooked inside of you. And it is going to want to lead you away from God. And so the best thing you can do is fasten steadfast love and faithfulness to yourself. That word fasten carries the idea of making these things a part of yourself, right? That they actually become an extension of your being. It's like method acting, right? Y'all know what method acting is? Normal acting is that I've got a character that I have to play the part of. Method acting is I have a character that I actually want to become, right? That I'm going to do everything in my power to become the very character that I've been called to play. I don't know if y'all have seen the movie Ray. Jamie Foxx is in the movie Ray. What Jamie decided to do to really get into the mind and the life of Ray Charles, this blues musician, this blind pianist, is when they would shoot upwards of 14 hours a day, he would glue his eyelids shut because he was that committed to getting into the emotional experience of playing Ray Charles. He needed to know what it was like to be blind. And so that was his commitment to playing the role well. That is similar to what he's asking us here. We need to be that committed. We need to bind steadfast love and faithfulness to ourselves in such a way that it is not severable from us, that it is a part of who we are. And the reality is this is not an easy thing to do, right? There is this desire within us to go away from God. That God, I do want to be noble in character. I do want to be upright in spirit. I do want to be your man. I do want to be your woman. But at the same time, God, if you'll just let me make this one compromise, then I can actually get where I want to be. And then, you know what, we'll jump back on. Like, I'm back on the train. Let's go, Christ. I'm on board. But just give me this one thing. Let me make this one concession. It's difficult for us. And yet, when we justify faithlessness, it jeopardizes our integrity. And as I look at this passage, I don't understand why we would do it. Because what God is promising is that if we would do this, we would find good success and favor in the sight of God and man. Is that what we all want? Right? We want good favor and success. That sounds pretty good to me. Does that sound good to you? I hope it does. If not, maybe we need to talk afterwards. But the idea here is that if you would just do these things, you will find good favor and success. Now, is it the kind of success? Does it mean that you'll be successful at any time you want, at any time and in all things? Maybe. Probably not. Like, you'll probably be successful in some of the areas you want, but it doesn't mean you'll be successful at all times. The idea here, though, is that you become successful at what matters most. That people will look at you, that God will look at you, and they will regard you as successful, not for what you do, but for how you do it. That they will look at you and they will see past your talent to your character, that they will recognize that you're a person of good reputation and godly nature. That's what it means to be success. But that's not the only way we succeed. We not only succeed by committing to God our whole heart, we succeed by submitting to God our entire life, right? It says that starting in verse 5. It says, trust in the Lord with all of your heart and do not lean on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him and he will make straight your paths. Be not wise in your own eyes. Fear the Lord. Turn away from evil. It will be healing to your flesh and refreshment to your bones. Honor the Lord with your wealth and with the first fruits of all your produce. Then your barns will be filled with plenty and your vats will be bursting with wine. Now, I'll be honest with you up front. Of the three keys that I'm going to give you tonight, this is the most difficult one probably. And the reason why that is because we are a really self-reliant people, right? We don't trust easily. At the end of the day, I don't want to count on anyone else to help me get what I want. If I'm in control, then I can avoid the things that I don't like, and I can attain the things that I do like, right? If I trust someone, I don't know that will actually play out the way that I want it to play out. And the reality is, though, is Solomon is saying, no, hey, listen, that's not what we're doing here. You need to, instead of trusting yourself, trust in the Lord. Trust in him with all of your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. You see, the idea of trusting in someone is to take on a posture of dependence, that you realize that you are insufficient. And so in response, you become totally reliant. That's what it means to trust someone. That word trust in this passage, in the original Hebrew, it carries the idea of lying prostrate on the ground before someone else in surrender, right? That you're not a conqueror, that you're conquered. That's what it means, and that's what he's telling us to do. You see, Navy SEALs do this incredibly well. That when Navy SEALs breach a door and they rush a room to clear it of enemy combatants, the idea is not that SEALs walk into the space thinking about themselves. They walk into the space thinking about their fellow operators, right? That as I move in and I take a blind corner, I have exposed some element of weakness, but I can trust that because my attention is fully undivided here, someone's attention is covering my six. That's how they clear a room. And so they have undistracted trust in one another. And here's what's amazing about it, that when they move in that formation, when they engage a situation not motivated from fear but focus, when they willingly take on helplessness in one sense, it makes them strong in another sense, that they can go further and faster together because they trust one another. And the same is true for us, that as we walk through life, we can trust in God, and that if we will, we'll go further, we'll go faster than we could ever go on our own. As Solomon continues, he doesn't just say that we should trust the Lord, but that we should fear the Lord. What does it mean to fear the Lord? Does it mean that he's someone you should be afraid of? No, the idea here is that you should just see him rightly. You should see him rightly. That when you get a realistic perspective of who God is, it gives you a realistic perspective of who you are. That when I see God as great as he actually is, I recognize just how small and insignificant I am in comparison. That's what it means to fear the Lord. And yet, when I see him, I see myself, but I don't only see myself as I should be. That's the heart of it. That when you fear the Lord, you see him rightly. And what you see is not just an intimate God, Jesus loves me, but he's a transcendent God. He's not just God with you, he's God over you. And what's amazing about that is it makes him terrifying and yet wonderful because he loves you. That's the kind of God I want to believe in. That's the kind of God we should want to believe in. And that's the kind of God that he is. And the last command that we get here in this section of verses, it starts off, it says, hey, trust the Lord. Hey, fear the Lord. Hey, honor the Lord, right? What's cool about those three commands in 6 verses, it tells us 3 things about God. Trust the Lord. He's reliable. Fear the Lord. He's reverable. And honor the Lord. He's valuable. He is valuable. How do you ascribe value to someone? What causes you to ascribe value to someone for what they've done? Is it because of what they've done or what they will do? Right? You value someone based on the work that they've done. The evidence that they've given you that they are worthy of being honored. If you valued God for what he would do, which this passage gives you an idea, right? That your barns are going to overflow and your vats are going to be bursting with new wine. He is promising that good things will come. And yet, that's not why you value him. That would be an investment. We don't invest in God. We value him. The heart behind it is we value him not because of what he will do, because of what he has already done. And so just as we come to a close here, I have one more story, and then we'll wrap this thing up. So I went to Texas A&M. Any Aggies in the room? Yeah? Okay, I almost gave y'all a howdy, but it just didn't feel like the right fit for the room. I was like, you know what, we're in Houston, and I don't want to ostracize anybody. I don't want them to feel like they're left out, but I went to A&M. And I remember as just a young, proud 18-year-old, driving from my hometown of Longview, Texas, all the way to College Station. And as I drove and made the trip alongside 2 of my best friends, I remember looking at them and actually telling them, hey, listen, guys, you know what? The next 4 years of our life, they're really going to shape and define who we are as people and what we do with our lives. But here's what I want you to know. Those things are going to happen. But what people don't know is going to happen is we are going to leave our mark. College Station is going to be different because we came here. They're going to remember us. I was that arrogant. I was that proud. I don't know what caused me to think that I had the right to say that, but I'm being honest. Night 1 with you guys, you don't know me from Adam. Here it is, right? I was that arrogant, that proud. And yet fast forward, not from my first year of college, but to my last year of college, and I stood at the precipice of just failure. Like everywhere I looked, I just felt like a complete and utter failure. Like I had been rejected by the master's program that I had put all of my hope into. I had not banked on any other options but this one option, and I had been rejected by it. I had been rejected before the entire student body as I campaigned for a public office. They looked at me and they said, no, we want a different guy. And I had been rejected by just an amazing girl who honestly I ruined the relationship with. And I found myself in that moment realizing, like, you know, professionally, I'm washed up. Relationally, I'm washed up. Socially, the world doesn't want me. And so I went to a mentor and I was like, hey man, listen, like I had all these dreams, all these aspirations, all of these plans for what would be true of my life, and none of the success that I intended has come to pass. I feel out of control. What do I do? What do I do from here? Where do I go? And I'll never forget the words he said to me. He was like, Kylan, the conversation you and I are having is a conversation that all people will have at some point in their life, because all people at some point in their life have this realization that they're not in control, that they can't do it on their own, and that ultimately they need help. The difference will be made in whether or not you have the courage to admit you need help. Which brings me to our final point on the night, which is this. that if we wish to succeed, we will succeed by admitting to God our every need. It says in verse 11, "My son, do not despise the Lord's discipline, or be weary of his reproof. For the Lord reproves him whom he loves as a father, the son in whom he delights." See, the reality is this, that no matter how hard we try, our lives will not be perfect. Things will not go the way that we intend. That even if we give our very best effort at committing to God our whole heart and submitting to God our entire life, we're not going to do it perfectly. We will fail at it. We will go astray. And so it's in that moment that we can take heart, that what we're meant to do is we're meant to admit to God, hey, I just need help. I need your help. And what gives us the confidence that he'll receive that request, that he'll meet us in our need? It's what it says here in this verse, because the Lord, he reproves him whom he loves, as a father does the son in whom he delights. He delights in you. He loves you. He'll meet you in that moment. He doesn't reprove you or correct you because he's disappointed or because he's angry. He does it because he cares. And the greatest evidence we have of this, as we go through life and as we fail and God meets us in it, is not just in what this verse promises, but it's in what we see through the life of Jesus Christ himself. In Jesus, these three keys are perfectly fulfilled. We will fail at all of them, and he never once, though, has failed in any of them. When Jesus came, he committed to God his whole heart. God, there's nothing else in life that I want but you. Though the world clamors for my affection, God, my attention is set on you and you alone. I'm committed. I'm bought in. He submitted his entire life, 33 years in the ancient Near East, as Jesus went from town to town, the King of glory, clothed in human flesh, deserving of our praise while he was here. Instead, he submitted his right to all of it. And he did what the Lord had called him to do. He sought the lost and the lonely. He healed the lame and the sick. He gave hope to the broken and the hopeless. And he did the third point. He admitted not his every need, but ours. That as he looked at our helpless estate, he looked to the Father and he said, God, they need me. They can't bring themselves back into relationship with you, and yet I can if I go in their place. And so let me go. I'll admit their need. I'll confess their sin. I will bear the penalty of their iniquity. Just let me go and let me stand in their stead. And so though we can't accomplish these three things perfectly, we don't have to, because they've been accomplished for us. And so here, 19 days in, as we look down the barrel of a brand new year, move forward with the expectation of attaining all that you want, so long as it's right within the Lord. Do it. Go for it, man. Be great at what God has called you to do in your workplace. Be the best you can be in the relationships that God has given you. Serve. Give of your time. Invest in something that matters more than yourself. Go and do those things. 2021, let it be the year of breakthrough. Let it be the year of revival. Let it be the year of new birth for so many people that have not yet come to know the Lord. But here's what I want to ask. Though 2020 was a setback and 2021 can be the comeback, I don't want us to be so focused on coming back to everything that we've lost in the last year. I want us to come back to everything we've gained in the name of Jesus Christ. That's where I want us to go. So these three keys to come back, let them drive you to the heart of God as it is seen in the person of Jesus.